Andy Burnham has gone to war with the police. Today, the Police Federation threatened legal action against the Labour government over the early release of two remorseless cop killers. The two monsters guilty of the killing of PC Andrew Harper. There they are, yes, just smiling away as they're being led away. Now, Andrew Harper was an officer with Thames Valley Police, who today came out and openly criticised the Prime Minister.
I do worry about the morale, not just of my own organisation, the confidence of my 10,000 people who work with Thames Valley Police. So I'd urge the government to look again at this issue. I know it's a difficult situation because of the prison crisis that we have, but I would urge the government to look again, because I do think there is a risk of impacting public confidence in the criminal justice system.
Very rare for a police force to come out and say something like that about a Prime Minister, but it does get worse for the Prime Minister. It's emerged today that 9,300 domestic abusers are set to be released early, thanks to his government's decision. So how many women and children will be put at risk there? There's no way that you're telling me that the authorities are going to be able to keep tabs on all of them. And we actually know that this has backfired before. Domestic abuser Jason Hoganson was released early back in November 2024. He was then recalled to prison 24 hours later, after immediately trying to contact the woman he was in prison for abusing. So far, Andy Burnham has let down the police and survivors of domestic abuse, but now it's emerged he's also letting down children who've been sexually abused. Initially, a lot of people misread headlines like this, mainly because people wrote quite dodgy-looking headlines. Because it makes it sound there, doesn't it, like any rapist or any child sex abuser won't be released. But that's not true. What Labour has actually said is that only the serious child sex offenders won't be allowed out early. I'm sorry, is there any form of child sexual abuse that isn't serious? Unfortunately, Andy Burnham can't face questions about this because he decided to swan off on holiday. But if I was interviewing him, I'd just ask him to specify exactly which child sex offences he thought were unserious. And it's all warped, isn't it? And if you just want more evidence of how mental the justice system is, take a look at this. Yes, a police officer who shot gangland trigger man Chris Harper dead after the vile armed criminal tried to drive his car into police officers will now not face a misconduct hearing. That's good. That's the good bit, OK? That's not the bit that's warped. The warped bit, really, is this.
Today's decision by the IPC that after 4 years, NX121 will not be facing any misconduct hearing is welcome, but this has taken far, far too long.
Oh, it's taken far too long. Oh, I've always been on the side of this particular police officer. Personally, I just think that Mark Rowley and the Met actually can get stuffed, because watch closely here. You might recognise the police officer in this video, and this was taken shortly after the shooting of Chris Harper.
Firstly, I would like to offer my heartfelt condolences to the family of Chris Harper. I can't begin to imagine what they're going through at this difficult time for them as they try to come to terms with the loss of their loved one. I know there is a great deal of concern out there about this incident. The community are hurt and there is trauma.
That man is Alexis Boone, the bloke now in charge of Hampshire Police and the force which delayed administering first aid to Henry Novak because they believed his ethnic minority murderer instead of him. And Alexis Boone could not issue anything like the same emotion over that as he did after Chris Harper was shot and killed. Yeah, he was at the Met at the time, and he was apologising there to the family of Chris Harper, worried about the community. Oh, gosh, I know you've experienced trauma. Harper had actually shot a bloke in a busy nightclub not long before he himself was killed by a police officer who was just trying to protect himself and others. It actually also took a jury just a matter of hours to clear the police officer for murder. It's taken the IOPC 4 years now to clear his name entirely. And why did the CPS even charge him? I suspect simply because he shot a black man and they were worried about being called racist. The justice system in this country is absolutely rotten to the core, isn't it? Let's get the views of my panel on this now. Mark, we'll start with you, Mark Littlewood.
Are you planning a trip this year? Well, staying connected when travelling abroad is the one thing everyone worries about. And that's where Saily comes in, the sponsor of this video. Saily is an app that gives you instant mobile data in 200 destinations without ridiculous roaming charges. There's no physical SIM cards, no airport queues, and no dodgy vending machines. Here's how it works. Download the Saily app, pick your country, choose your data plan, and install the eSIM once. Then when you land, it activates instantly. You're online straight away. Maps are working, Uber's booked, and your photos are uploading. And the best part, you only install the eSIM once. On your next trip, just buy a new plan and switch it back on. Some have even found it's faster than hotel Wi-Fi. Plus, there's ad blocking, 24/7 support, and a full refund if your phone isn't compatible. Before your next trip, download Saily using our link below. Use code NEWS for 15% off and get sorted before you travel. Go to saily.com/news or scan the QR code now. And thank you to Saily for supporting the channel.
Look, there's obviously a couple of different aspects to this. Firstly, the early release scheme. Andy Burnham appears to have lost the support of Thames Valley Police. I suspect wider police forces as well. And, you know, he's accused now of letting down victims of domestic abuse and child victims of sexual abuse.
It's absolutely incredible, this. I know that the defenders of the Labour government will say, and it's a fair criticism, that the Conservatives didn't build enough prison places. But you've had 2 years to think through what your early release scheme might look like. And in rough terms, I think it's about 50% of the prison population are in there for violence or sex crimes. Well, I would completely discount that lot and look at the other 50%. There also doesn't seem to be any clarity around what the terms of an early release might be. I mean, for example, if you released someone, preferably not a child sex offender, but somebody who'd been involved, I don't know, in a robbery, and you said, well, you've actually got to stay at home or within a mile of your house, or if you've traumatised some innocent people in a particular town, you can't go within 10 miles of that town. None of these conditions appear to have been thought through either. It's absolutely extraordinary, because the overcrowding was a problem that this government inherited, but it's had 2 years to think through the solution, and Andy Burnham's making it up over his tea over a weekend. It's absolutely mad. So I'm unsurprised that the police force are worried about this, because in essence their workload goes up because they know a lot of crims are coming out of prison and will be in the community much earlier than was anticipated.
You know, when it was first released, I think it was misreported, actually. The headlines were poorly written about there'll be no rapists released or child sex offenders. But actually, when you read it, they say no serious child sex offenders. So what, just a little bit of child sex offending's OK, but we draw the line at something else. I find that really perplexing. The government now deciding, and we can't question him because he's on holiday. This is the thing, we can't say to him, sorry, Andy, which child sex offences do you think are OK?
Well, unfortunately, we've got a Prime Minister that becomes Prime Minister and then avoids going to Parliament, despite having the opportunity to go to Parliament, chose not to, chose to muddle around with that. Then all these horrific things are happening and we are getting misleading headlines, of course, from the establishment Westminster media that don't like to tell the British people the truth. If they do that, there would be a problem in this country, because I think if people knew what's really going on in this country, we would see civil unrest. And then, of course, we then have the situation here where we've got a Prime Minister who I don't actually think he's that bothered about prisoners being released early. What he's bothered about is that the public might start turning on him a bit quicker than he thought. Already we've seen the Burnham bounce isn't a thing. Already we're seeing that he is incredibly unpopular with his choices of government appointments. So I think what Burnham will be doing is trying to hide. And, I mean, by the way, how on earth is that bloke on holiday right now? He's just become Prime Minister. I mean, most normal people, when they get a job, don't go on annual leave within a few weeks. I mean, it's absolutely crazy.
Of workers' rights,
and I've got nothing against people having a rest. But the point about this story, I think, and I think particularly with this police officer here, is we have a serious situation in this country where the police are bothered about offending absolutely everybody apart from white people. That's the truth of the matter. Heterosexual white people, even worse so. We've got a situation in this country where people are too scared to talk about radical Islam because they might be called Islamophobic, which is not a real world. They try to talk about the fact that actually we should do stop and search, but oh no, that's really offensive towards black people. The reality in this country is the police, and by the way, police officers tell me this, Police officers, then they'll get sacked if they say it at work, but they tell me, Essex police officers in particular, and police officers in a Met that live in Essex, that are also my residents, tell me they are so scared to speak the truth at work because the institutional bias is unbearable. But these people have got mortgages to pay. And so what we need to see, and I hope police officers do this, I hope we start to see them actually whistleblow what is really going on in our police forces, because the institutional bias against white people is horrendous.
Well, OK, we'll focus on the early release thing, and we'll come on to the Chris Cabba police officer in a second. But this early release thing is going south pretty quickly for Burnham, isn't it? I mean, Thames Valley Police to come out today and
people are trying to stick things to Burnham at the moment because everybody's desperate to bring him down just as he started. He started well. He's announced plans every single day since he started. And he's entitled to a holiday. The man probably hasn't slept in months. And we need a Prime Minister who is fresh and who can come back and make decisions. Always is the time when most people are on holiday. This is the easiest time to take a holiday. If he took a holiday in the middle of something where it was, Parliament's not sitting, how can you grudge the man a holiday? He needs to recharge his batteries and come back. And anybody, I mean, you're sneering, Jamie.
I'm laughing because I can't keep my straight
Patrick,
face.
there's times when you've been on your absolute knees and you have needed a holiday and you've taken a holiday and nobody's castigating you. We've all been in that.
I did also cancel my honeymoon to report on the general election, though.
Well, fair enough, but that wasn't necessarily for fatigue, was it?
No.
But the country's
would have been nice, wouldn't it?
No.
I was really looking forward to that honeymoon.
No.
So selfish.
No.
When you're head of an organisation, as the Prime Minister is head of government, and things are going wrong in your organisation, you can't leave.
So when things are not going wrong, and the thing is,
the justice system.
He's in a rock between a rock and a hard place.
Okay.
When Labour took over, there were just 700 odd places.
Fine.
And you were quite right. You tried to lance the ball with saying that the Tories were actually, disastrous with this. You dumped 23 prisons. You actually abolished.
But they've had 2 years to work out the response to this government.
OK, well, let's just get on to the police officer, the Chris Cabba police
They're
officer.
spending billions. Oh, God.
All right. Well, OK. Well, I think we're fine. Anyway, we'll get on to the police officer. I just want to fit this in, Nina. Sorry.
Fair enough.
Right, so...
But you allowed them to speak for hours and hours and hours. I practically fell asleep listening to them.
Oh, God. Well, hopefully the viewers didn't. Anyway, right, look, yes, this police officer. Now, OK, it's all very well and good for Mark Rowley from the Met to come up and go, oh, gosh, it's awful, this. It took 4 years to clear this guy's name. Well, there was at the time a very senior member of the Met who was doing a grovelling video apology to the family of Chris Cabba. If I'd have been that firearms officer then, I'd have been thinking, right, well, there you go. That's me bangs to rights, isn't it? Cheers, mate.
It's a disaster. I mean, I think essentially what we've had, I've got some sympathy with what Jamie said is the outcome, but we've basically seen a massive overcorrection in policing. I think if you go back to the 70s, 80s, possibly even the 90s, there is a problem. You start looking at the statistics of what sort of people are dying in police custody, for example, and it doesn't tend to be white people. That had to be dealt with. But it's gone way too far the other way. We have got to instill in every copper, from the most junior trainee right to the top, that their overarching priority is to crack crime and to nick the bad guys, not to be sitting in on courses about sensitivity to people's particular racial or religious preferences. And there's now, as Jamie rightly identifies, clearly a culture of fear about speaking out about this. Anything that suggests that you think the whole DEI regime has gone too far, career-ending. And that leads to these outrageous statements being made. And for this poor copper, OK, this has come to an end, but the process is the punishment. He's lost 4 years of his life.
Yeah.
He's done nothing wrong.
Well, and there was also big things. I mean, we're not naming it, right? But he was named in court.
Yeah.
That will unquestionably have put him at huge risk as well. I'll give Jamie the final word. So, Nina, we're back to you here. Do you think that this firearms officer was thrown to the wolves a bit because essentially he shot an ethnic minority?
I think people are paranoid about that sort of stuff. I mean, what Jamie's been saying is that the white heterosexual male is the most beleaguered part of our society. That's absolute paranoia. It's not true. There are still. You said that there was racism. We've known that for decades and decades and decades, up until say the 90s. It still exists. It still exists. The people who are stopped and searched are still, in the majority, black people. There is still racism, and there's
That's not
racism.
racist, Nina, because you can identify certain communities, men more than women, Afro-Caribbeans more than Hong Kong Chinese, who are more likely to be involved in crime. It's just a fact, and facts can't be racist. So if you're stopping and searching people, you would tend to stop young Afro-Caribbean men, not elderly Jewish women. Not because you're racist, because that's what the criminal data tells you.
I can take that point, but I think that the balance is still too far the other way. I can quite see that there's an overcompensation in certain cases, but I think overall the feeling is there is still racism.
Right. Well, with this today, I mean, OK, so he's not going to face any kind of misconduct hearing. He was charged with murder, and basically it was one of these cases where when the jury actually watched the video, they're like, why the heck is this guy even here? And it does make me worry. Again, it's all really well and good for Mark Riley to come out and go, oh, well, we've supported him behind the scenes a lot, actually. And there was a bloke there who was essentially just saying, oh, I'm so sorry for the trauma that you suffered. If I came and issued a statement like that on an active court case, I feel like I could get done for contempt of court.
Well, this is it, isn't it? Ultimately, we have a DEI rot in our institutions, in our public institutions. I want police officers, especially firearms police officers, to have zero hesitation to shoot someone that is a danger to the public when they have made that assessment that they are trained to do. I want zero concern from them about whether or not they've got a lawyer behind them about to take away their life, their mortgage, and maybe even their freedom. And what happened in this case is a police officer in the line of duty protecting the public has had a 4-year punishment by process because he did his job. And it's the same for our army, and the same for our veterans who are worried about the lawyers behind them rather than the enemy
and
in front of them.
And so you've got a few justice stories rolled into one there, and essentially what it boils down to is that you've got a completely innocent firearms officer who was very bravely doing his job, who nearly had his life completely destroyed. And then you've actually got non-serious, I'm air quoting for our radio listeners there, child sex offenders being released. You've got domestic abusers being released, and you've got cop killers being released early. It's mad.
But where are they to go? If we don't have the places, where are they to go? And the problem is that when we release prisoners, the recidivism rate is 50 to 60%. And most of these people that are coming back, the places are being taken by people who are coming back in within 2 years.
Who are not in prison for violent crime or sex crimes.
We should be looking at that. We should be looking at that. But the state of our prisons they're supposed to be not only to punish people, not only to keep them away from the public, but they're supposed to rehabilitate them, because what is the point of releasing them if they are not fit for society and be able to contribute and get a job?
All right. I think with that, though, the first bit, as you have to show some genuine remorse, which some people do, but there's no evidence of it, unfortunately, when it comes to the killers of PC Andrew Harper. There's certainly not publicly, but anyway...
That's the dreadful thing.
Yeah. And as always, the victims are just not important in this conversation, and that's the worst thing about it.
A Prime Minister barely settles into Downing Street, and within days he's accidentally declared war on his own police force. Not with tanks, not with tear gas, with paperwork. Welcome to Britain, where the scariest weapon in government isn't a missile, it's a spreadsheet full of early releases. Now that's not a footnote, that's a 5-alarm fire. The widow of a murdered police officer watching her husband's killers potentially walk free early. Naturally, the Police Federation didn't send a strongly worded email, they threatened legal action. And when the people meant to enforce the law start threatening to sue the people who make it, you know you're in properly uncharted waters. But wait, there's more, because there always is. Thousands of domestic abuse offenders were also on the release list, and the guidance on child sex offenders was, let's say, creatively vague. Only the serious ones stay locked up, apparently, as if there's a casual tier. It's the kind of policy that sounds like it was scribbled on a napkin during a rushed cup of tea, not drafted over the 2 years Labour actually had to prepare for this exact overcrowding crisis they inherited. Now, let's swing over to something even messier, the Chris Caber case. A firearms officer shoots an armed man mid-getaway, gets charged with murder, and a jury clears him in hours. Hours. Yet the police watchdog, the IOPC, took 4 years to reach the same conclusion. That's not caution. That's a system so terrified of its own shadow it forgot how to function. And here's the sting. Senior police leaders were quick with emotional apologies in one direction, but strangely quiet when officers themselves felt abandoned, silenced, or scared to speak plainly about crime patterns for fear of being labelled the wrong thing. Meanwhile, actual victims, families of murdered officers, survivors of domestic abuse, they're sat in the corner of this national conversation, practically invisible.
So what do we actually have here? A justice system pulled between political convenience and public safety, tripping over its own contradictions, while the people it's supposed to protect are left waiting for answers nobody seems brave enough to give. Thanks so much for watching. We will catch you in the next one.